There's arguments to be made that the Admirals versus Yonko debate is the most controversial in the entire series. It's right up there with Mihawk versus Shanks, and it's funny because both of these topics, they were born from the same exact arc, and that's Marineford. And because the current fight in the manga involves an Emperor of the Sea and an Admiral, we're once again here trying to piece this stuff together, trying to connect the dots to see if we can answer this question. And as I just mentioned, Marineford is where it all started, specifically Akainu versus Whitebeard. And this is the fight that people reference the most because the idea is Oda was sending a message here. The idea was Oda was telling us that the Yonko were so far ahead of the Admirals that it's not even worth discussing. At a certain point, people even thought that 3 Admirals would lose to a prime Whitebeard. Of course, this take has fluctuated and evolved over time. It's gotten to the point where people now think that an Admiral can fight an Emperor, but they lose every single time. Whatever the case might be, I don't think Akainu versus Whitebeard is a good reference point. Given the specific situation and the circumstances, I believe both sides were way too disadvantaged for us to accurately judge their power and the overall power dynamic. After that, we didn't really have a real encounter between an Admiral and an Emperor, and the closest thing that we got was Blackbeard's encounter with Kuzan. This took place a year after his fight with Akainu and when Blackbeard had just been named a new Emperor. Fast forward to the present day, and now we have Luffy versus Kizaru. And I imagine a good number of people probably think that this is where Luffy shows his dominance. This is where he tells the world, I'm an Emperor of the Sea. I'm the man who defeated Kaido and no one can stand in my way. So naturally the idea is that Luffy would defeat Kizaru here, or at the least prove that he is stronger. I don't believe that to be the case. I don't think that Luffy is stronger than Kizaru. And I know what you're probably thinking. How could you say Kizaru is stronger than Kaido? Are you saying Admirals are stronger than Yonko? No, that is not at all what I'm saying. Number one, I think Kaido is stronger than Kizaru. I also think if Luffy and Kaido ran it back and they were both fresh, I think Kaido would win. The way I see Luffy, he is on that top tier level now. He can fight a top tier one-on-one without anybody else's help and match them blow for blow. Kizaru is not Kaido. Although he isn't stronger, he poses a new set of challenges. And Luffy isn't top 1. He isn't the strongest in the world. He still has lessons he has to learn. He has not mastered Gear 5. He hasn't mastered Conqueror's Coding. He still has holes in his game. Once he fills them up, that's when he'll be the strongest of all time. That's when nobody in the history of the One Piece verse can say that they are stronger or his equal. The way I see it right now, I think the power consumption from Gear 5 is too much to sustain over a long period of time. I think this was even implied after his fight with Lucci when he turned into sort of an old man like he did against Kaido. And the thing with Kaido is he was going through a lot himself. He was fighting non-stop while also lifting Onigashima. That's not the case with Kizaru. Kizaru here is fresh. He hasn't fought anyone, and these guys have been shown to have insanely high stamina. And that's what comes with experience. That's what comes with all the years you spend as an Admiral. It's this non-stop buildup of stamina. And that's why we saw Akainu and Aokiji able to fight for 10 straight days. All of this is to circle back and say that Admiral versus Yonko debate is asking the wrong question. This is not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It's not about the Admirals equaling the Yonko or the Yonko being stronger than the Admirals. Matchups matter, circumstances matter, experience matters, and narrative also matters. So it could be the case that some Yonko are stronger than some Admirals are stronger than some Yonko. You can't just hide behind the title. You have to show what you can do and how that interacts with another person's abilities. What advantages do you have over another top tier? What advantages do they have over you? And how does that dictate the overall flow of the battle? For example, I think Kizaru is a bad matchup for Big Mom. He has better stamina than her, he's way too fast for her, and of course, he can damage her. In years past, of course, people were convinced that Kizaru, or any other Admiral for that case, had no way to damage Big Mom. But as we saw in Onigashima, that's not the case at all. She's not this invincible force of nature. She can be damaged and she can be defeated. If Law and Kid were able to force her to give up years of her life just to recover from awakened attacks they had just recently learned to use, imagine what a full power Kizaru could do. Imagine the hell he'd unleash on Big Mom. And then you have something like Blackbeard and Kuzan. I think with what we know and what we have learned since then, if Blackbeard had decided to fight Kuzan that day that he met him at the bar, I think he would have lost. And I think he thinks he would have lost as well. This is why you can't just hide behind that Emperor title, because Blackbeard himself is still learning. Before the final saga, who was the strongest person that Blackbeard defeated? Marco the Phoenix? That's just not enough, because at the same time, Kuzan fought the fiercest battle in the series with Akainu. And then we saw in one of the recent chapters that Kuzan, when he was young, he started learning from Garp, and the way they trained, no devil fruit abilities, no haki, just pure physical strength. So even if a Blackbeard manages to limit the effects of Kuzan's devil fruit, he still has a lot to deal with. You look at Blackbeard versus Law, and that was also a learning moment for him. He went in thinking he had the whole game figured out, but he didn't think about what if Law had a potential awakening. Now he can take that into account in every battle thereafter, and maybe even the Rocky Port incident was a learning moment for him. Maybe he got stronger there. Maybe his fight against Wang Ji was pivotal for his growth as well. And maybe eventually he needs a third devil fruit to reach the peak of his strength, because that's what a lot of people are going with. That's why a lot of people have Blackbeard lower on lists than he should be as one of Luffy's final opponents, because honestly he might not be there yet. And then you have people like Kaido and Shanks, who I believe are stronger than every Admiral, with Akainu being the one that might be stronger than either one of them. Who knows? But this is where stuff like narrative comes into play, because if Akainu is one of Luffy's final opponents, he might be stronger than both of them. He also has the skills and accolades for this to make sense. He has the strongest offensive devil fruit in the series, and before Luffy, he was the only one to defeat a top tier. Typically overall for the Admirals, they're usually downplayed because they're not going all out and one-shotting everything in sight, but that's because of the circumstances and where they usually are. Like Marineford, for example, they were so much more worried about the infrastructure of the place than they were about causing destruction and killing the pirates around them. It was the same thing brought up during the Reverie, and I know people usually don't want to hear this. They're like, oh, these are Admirals, they should have a way to defeat people without using their devil fruits, this and that. Whatever the case might be there, Oda has constantly tried to drill this home, constantly bringing it up, straight up telling us that he is nerfing the Admirals and not letting them go all out. In the case of the Reverie, we saw that that was actually a case where Fujitora and Green Bull ended up fighting each other, because Fujitora had a completely different agenda. He was trying to free the slaves while Green Bull was trying to kill the Revs. Now, of course, the main subject was Luffy versus Kizaru, and with that matchup, I don't think we'll have a conclusion. I think it's going to be interrupted, but before it's interrupted, it's going to show the two of them fighting on equal footing. I don't think Kizaru is going to look bad, and I don't think Luffy is going to look bad. I think Luffy will make a statement, but it won't be one where he's showing us he's stronger than Kizaru. He's going to show us he's on that level, on that general tier. And this is mainly because the objective was to escape from the beginning, and Kizaru's objective is to kill Vegapunk. But from the power scaling side, the reason I believe Kizaru is superior is because of where he's at in his career. He is a seasoned vet who's been thrown in all sorts of circumstances and situations. But honestly, more important than that is the fact that Luffy, throughout the post-time skip, every single major fight that he's had, he's needed help in some way, shape, or form. And that's because of the immense power of his gears. They use up so much energy to the point that he can't sustain them for too long. He gets better with them each time he uses them, but the newer the gear, the harder it is, and he is not that used to gear 5. Although I might think Luffy has a greater attack power than Kizaru, I don't think he'll be able to beat him in 10 or 20 minutes. And I don't believe this is Kizaru's final matchup or Kizaru's main fight in the series, so that's why I think he'll be limited as well as far as what we see from him. It's very much up in the air whether we see awakening from him or other hockey abilities, or if that's going to be saved for later on. This battle might still serve a purpose for both, and Luffy might overcome one of the hurdles in this very fight. He might gain better control of gear 5, he might get better stamina overall, he might become faster, or he might improve his future sight, because fighting someone like Kizaru, you might just need to max out your future sight. All in all, I feel like Luffy still has a lot to learn. But those are all my thoughts on how I think this fight against Kizaru will go, and what I think currently about the Yonko versus Admiral debate. But as always, tell me what you think. How do you think this fight against Kizaru will go for Luffy? Do you think he wins? Do you think they stalemate? Or do you think it just gets interrupted with no conclusion whatsoever? Comment all your thoughts down below, but also don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for more videos just like this one.